G'day guys, welcome to this episode of Aussie English. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing my brother-in-law Rory. So today we went out for my sister's 30th birthday. So we went to a vineyard and brewery. I think they brew cider. A place called the Flying Brick, which is near Ocean Grove where we live on the Ballerine Peninsula. So we went out there. It was really good. Got to see my grandparents, my folks. Obviously Kel and I went, and my sister Annika and her partner Rory and their daughter Isabel were all there as well. So yeah, it was pretty good fun. We got to hang out, and it reminded me that I needed to put this interview up on the podcast with him. So today we chat all about gaming, and I thought he would be the perfect guy to get on the podcast to talk about what it's like growing up being interested in games or somewhat addicted to games, which I was back in the day when I was younger and had a lot more free time. And yeah, he's very much into his games. He's also learnt Japanese, and I thought he'd be the perfect person to get on the podcast to give you guys more access to more Aussie English accents. Now, I do want to apologise that I haven't sort of gotten into a rhythm yet this year with staying, I guess, well, in a rhythm with the podcast episodes, the expression episodes in particular. Now, I've been working on a lot of different things in the Aussie English classroom. I recently put up the shadowing course. There's also now a spoken English course in the Aussie English classroom. So I'm putting up a lot more content focused on improving your accent, improving your spoken English, the use of contractions, the use of, well, your pronunciation in general. And so that's why I've sort of been out of kilter, out of rhythm a little bit with the different kinds of episodes that I put up. Anyway, that's a big intro, guys. I kind of just wanted to tell you what I've been up to, give you an update. Now let's get into it, and I give you my brother-in-law Rory and me chatting about games and growing up in Australia. Let's go. Welcome to this episode of Aussie English, guys. I have my, I guess you would say brother-in-law, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
You aren't married, but that's
it's
that
the easiest
position.
way to say it.
Exactly. So I thought I'd get Rory on, my sister's husband. It's not really right to say boyfriend, right? You just say partner.
Good. Yeah.
I thought I'd get you on to chat about video games in Australia and growing up with them, because you're a bit of a gamer. I was a bit of a gamer, but I just haven't done it in a long time.
You're on a hiatus.
Exactly. Wow, that's it. Does it ever stop, right? Does it ever wear off? Is it like alcoholism?
Yeah, I think it's a bit like that. You regress from time to time.
So what was it like growing up? What was your first introduction to gaming? Do you remember at all?
Yeah, so my dad was big into IT, so he always had a good, for the time, a good computer, and used to sit me on his knee and play some little rudimentary video games with me, little MS-DOS games.
Yeah, far out. I think I remember going across the road to my friend's house, and he had like an IBM. I don't know if it was Microsoft back then or not. This would have been
was a really popular computer at the time.
And he had so many of these old school video games that were like the arcade type thing, and I remember it just blowing my mind and like always wanting to go over, and we'd just be like, can we just go play the game straight away?
That's it. We used to, I think it was like, even Snake, like a MS-DOS version of Snake that used to be on the phones.
Yeah.
Used to play that, and
my mum used to play that a lot.
Yeah, and then it went on to like the Aladdin game, the Lion King game. And, all the little kids' games.
And so, do you remember being in primary school and the first person to introduce you to the Game Boy, or did you get one of those?
No, I didn't actually get one, but I remember seeing some of my friends getting one, and the Game Boy Color, the semi-transparent ones.
Yeah.
They used to play Pokemon on.
Yeah.
I never got one, but
you never got one.
It was disappointing.
I remember when I was in primary school, there was a kid called Jared who was the first person to have one of those old black and white Game Boys, and he brought it in, and I remember that he had Pokemon Red, the very first version of Pokemon, and he used to allow us to play it if we paid $1, and we'd each get like 5 minutes.
That's amazing. What a great business idea.
Well, we used to get... we would have been in like grade 4 or 5.
Wow.
Yeah, and like I remember mum and dad, would give you a few dollars each day to go to the tuck shop and buy a packet of chips or a potato cake or something, right?
So he's running an arcade out of the primary school.
Yeah, exactly. And so we would go and pay him to use his game and play his game though, right? Like it wasn't like we could start from the start and have our own. It was his game that he'd already like
So
leveled
not
up a
only
bit.
is he getting money, he's having his game played for him by other people.
Exactly. He's getting other people to pay for the right to level up his Pokemon.
Yeah.
So I remember that was my first introduction to Pokemon Red, and I decided after that I had to have it.
Yeah.
And I think within like the next 6 months, the Game Boy Color came out, and I had a purple one, and I think Annika had a green one. I can't remember which one she had. My sister got one, and she got Pokemon Blue, and I got Pokemon Red. And I think that was my first introduction to sort of gaming. And
yeah.
did you ever play those games? Did you ever end up with one?
Well, I never played them on the computer as an emulator.
Okay.
But yeah, because I think my first console was the PlayStation 1. We didn't
Oh, really?
Yeah, we didn't get a console for a long time. And I guess when you talk about these things, it's always generational, right?
Yeah.
Because like we were 90s kids, so...
I had a PlayStation 1 too. I would have
Yeah.
gotten that, I think, after the Game Boy. What games were you playing on PlayStation 1? Crash Bandicoot?
Yeah. So we had so many games because Dad went over to Vietnam and he bought all these like games for $2, $1, all these pirated ones. And we had a mod chip in the PlayStation.
Oh, what?
And so we had hundreds of games.
Because that used to be a thing, right? Where you could get you could buy a PlayStation for several $100, and then each game would be like $60 to $100. And then I remember, at least with the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2, that there was a business where people could mod them, or like you would send your PlayStation to a friend's house.
I think it cost about $40 or something like that.
And they put some sort of chip in. I never actually saw how it was done, but I remember friends doing that, and it meant that they could play games from overseas or something.
Yeah, or you could burn them yourself.
Ah, that's
so
right.
Even you would borrow games from the like local Video Easy or whatever, and then you could, if you had a CD burner on your computer, you could burn the games and then play them on your PlayStation.
Far out, that's right. Yeah, because there would be, back in the day, that was when there were video, like VHS stores, right, renting out videos, and I guess DVDs towards the end.
And consoles as well.
And consoles and video games. I think, I remember going and borrowing video games like Tekken, the fighting games, before we actually ended up buying them. But yeah, I remember that and thinking that my friend had a lot of games that he'd somehow acquired without buying them. And then he was like, I just borrow them and burn them.
Yeah, and they were all good, but it was sort of like, I always felt like the Nintendo 64 was the better quality. The better quality games were on the Nintendo. And some of my friends had that, and we would end up just all night playing Super Smash Brothers or...
And James Bond, right?
Bond, yeah, Perfect Dark. And so I always wanted one of them as well. But... yeah, it was good having lots of games because you just play 5 minutes of each one, but I think the quality was really on the 64.
That was the difficult one too. You'd get bored pretty quickly, right? You'd play... This was before the time of like those really addictive games like Call of Duty and Battlefield, where you could be on there playing I think as soon as they brought in that online component where you could interact with other people, before then these games were relatively... You could play them, but you couldn't really sit there for an 8-hour binge, right? You'd get pretty bored.
They realised that if they put in a levelling system that doesn't really end, you just keep getting experience, you keep getting points, the more you play, people just got addicted to it. Whereas before, it was sort of like you play to unlock a bunch of stuff. It might take you, 20, 30 hours, and then you've got everything. And you play it because it's fun, but you're not playing it to unlock everything else. Like, in Call of Duty, when they figured out you could give people a slightly different variation of a colour on their weapon, and they'll spend hundreds of hours trying to get that.
Or even pay for it, right? Nowadays you can unlock things like that in these games, but you can pay to have those things. And that was when it clicked, right? When they were like, oh my gosh, we can sell the game, but then it's all the other added components within the game, like expansion packs, everything like that we can make all the money on.
Yeah, and it's so insidious now, but back then it was just... It's nice to think of those times because it's a bit more quaint, but...
So were you always a PlayStation guy, or you made the switch, didn't you? I was always a PlayStation. I bought a PlayStation 1, I bought a PlayStation 2, I bought a PlayStation 3. I never got a 4, unfortunately. That was when I fell off the wagon and was just like, I don't have time for this anymore, damn it. And Kel won't let me spend that kind of money on a PlayStation anymore.
That's disappointing.
We don't even have a TV. But did you make the switch? Because I know you've got an Xbox today, right? And you've got the computer too.
I've got... so I got a PlayStation 1, aside from my computer, which I've always had. PlayStation 1, and then I got a GameCube instead of a PlayStation 2, which the GameCube was the Nintendo console. And then I got an Xbox 360, so I've had all three.
Oh, wow, okay.
And then I went back to... And now I have a Switch.
Yeah, which is Nintendo, right?
Yeah.
So what were the benefits and why did you go back and forth? Were you following games or franchises that you really liked, or was there some other aspect to the different gaming systems that made you think, these ones are way better, like the way it feels in my hands with the controls, all of that? Or
yeah, I think it was... So I got a PlayStation 1 because, like I said, we got all the burnt games.
Yeah.
And then because I liked the 64 so much, I thought, right, I'll get a GameCube this time.
Yeah.
And then the Xbox 360 I bought on a whim because it was on sale at JB. That was when I moved out of home, so it was pretty late in the Xbox lifespan, I think. But and then this time I went for a Switch because all the standard PlayStation, Xbox games, there are a couple of exclusives, but for the most part they come out on PC as well.
And it's cheaper, is it, or you're just used to that system?
It's usually cheaper.
Yeah.
But the PC has a lot of other benefits, so I've got a PC for those sort of games, and then the Switch offers a completely different experience. So
what are the benefits of playing on PC? Because I remember there used to be those sort of two factions. You would have your console kids who would play on things like GameCubes, PlayStations, Xboxes, and then you would have your computer kids. And it always seemed to me like, for some reason, I got sucked into the consoles, but the computer kids were always a lot more full on.
Yeah.
Like
they called the PC master race.
What was the difference between the two, and what were the benefits of playing on computer compared to consoles?
Well, without mentioning any of the downsides, which there are some, it was always like you don't upgrade to the next console and lose all the games that you had on the last one.
Yeah, I remember that being really irritating.
Yeah. So I've still got really old games. I've got Commander Keen from the 90s on my computer now,
and you can still play it.
Yeah, and in 20 years I'll still be able to play it.
Yeah. So the operating system's the same, which means you can play all these games.
Yeah, and they just sort of keep them running on the latest operating system. But it's also that games are a bit cheaper.
Yeah.
And you can use any input device. You can use mouse and keyboard, which is much more accurate for
Are they
shooters.
cheaper too because you can just download them on the computer, right? You don't need to get CDs or any kind of DVDs?
Actually, digital games are usually more expensive.
Oh, really?
So, say on the Switch, if I walk into JB Hi-Fi and I buy a brand new Nintendo game, it might cost me $80. But if I buy it through the Nintendo store online, it'll usually cost about $100.
What?
Yeah, it
How
makes
does that
no
make
sense because you'd think the distribution and the production of the CDs and everything would be pretty expensive.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They get away with it because they can.
Is there just fewer people doing that too, and maybe they don't have to compete with as many other different consoles that have games at a similar price point? Or
yeah, I'm not sure.
That's weird.
I guess it's that the retailers themselves aren't involved.
Yeah.
So the retailers are competing with each other, so they want to keep dropping the price.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas if you're selling it through your store, the Nintendo store,
you can just have this
spot you can buy it.
I would be just like, I'm just going to go down the store and buy it then. Screw you.
Well, it's also that I'm so lazy. I hate going up to the TV and swapping the disc or swapping the cartridge.
Yeah, I'll pay $20 for this, less of an inconvenience.
Exactly, yeah. And particularly with the Switch because it's a portable.
Yeah.
So I hate having to carry a little case of games with me everywhere. It's much easier just to have it all on there.
Far out. So what are the other downsides of playing on a computer then? Because I know that the other positive side is having loads more people, right? Because the computers are way more powerful than consoles with RAM and speed and internet connection, right?
Yeah, so you can have much better graphics.
Yeah. But what are the downsides then?
Well, the other thing I should mention is you can use any controller. So I could use
you can connect it up to the
controller.
computer.
Yeah, I could use a Switch controller. Even I could use some old USB Super Nintendo controller or a joystick or whatever we can think of. Mm-hmm. They're pretty much all supported. But the downsides are that you have usually a lot of those games now that are on consoles as well have a smaller player base on PC, like the multiplayer.
Okay.
And also you can, it's not as prevalent as it used to be, but you can run into errors. Say your games might crash and then you got to go, why is it crashing? I don't understand. I might have to change some settings on my PC.
So do the games tend to be a bit more buggy on the computers instead of the consoles because they can be sort of updated and everything online, as opposed to if it comes out on a CD, it's pretty hard to...
It's more that, because everything's updated online at the moment, even on consoles, it's more that you've got one set of hardware. So if I'm developing an Xbox game, there's one set of hardware to optimize it for, whereas with a PC, who knows how many combinations you could have. It's like Android apps versus iPhone.
Yeah.
You've got so many different versions of an Android phone that you have to optimize it for all these different things, and you're always going to miss some and make some mistakes. So I think it's the same with PC, but it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. The downside is that you've got a lot of launches. So you have like, say the Steam is the main one. So you have the online storefronts that you purchase your games through and launch your games through. There's not just one. You might have, say, like Fortnite, which is really popular, that uses the Epic Games launcher. So now you've got Steam and Epic, and if you want to play Overwatch, then you have to have the Blizzard game launcher. So you're managing your games through all these different fronts. And there are certain launchers you can get that sort of bring them all together, but it's just a bit more complex. It's a bit less user-friendly than the consoles.
Far out. So where do you see it going? Like, do you see it all sort of moving onto one console? Is one console going to win out, or computer? Or do you think there's going to be this, I guess, compartmentalization of all these different games on different consoles, and that's going to maintain each of them because of their own individual popularity? Well,
they're talking about game consoles are moving more towards PCs in that they're upgraded more often, and they've got... they've been playing around with having changeable components and things like that. But it's also that the main game companies are all talking about cloud gaming as the next big thing, where you won't have a particularly powerful console. You'll just have one that connects to the internet, and you have a subscription like Netflix.
Yeah, so everything is in the cloud. You can access any game anywhere, and it's just as long as you've got the internet connection, you can play it. Yeah,
so all the processing, you won't have to have an amazing graphics card or anything like that on your local computer or console.
Really?
It'll all be done by sort of a computer farm.
So this just depends on the fact that you have a really fast internet connection, though.
Basically, yeah. And I think in Australia especially, we're going to struggle with that.
But, so do you think we're going to be left behind a bit if America gets to that point?
Yeah. The idea is that all the processing is done offshore, and then you're just essentially getting the images and sending the inputs through your controller back to the server.
When's that going to come in, do you think?
They're experimenting with it right now. You can play... There was a project where you could play Assassin's Creed, the latest Assassin's Creed, through Chrome on your computer.
Through Chrome?
Yeah.
Wow, just through your internet browser?
Yeah. I don't think it was available in Australia. It might have been Japan only or something like that, but it's pretty impressive what they've been able to do with it.
All right. And so growing up as a kid and sort of obviously starting out, I guess we would have been the generation after the arcades sort of got up and running, right? That was the early 80s when people started having pinball and everything, or maybe even the late 70s. So we sort of grew up, and then slowly computer, laptops, consoles, gaming, Game Boys and all of that came out. Having lived through that, where do you think it's going to go for your children, right? For the next generation? Do you think it's going to be even more invasive with regards to, like, obviously where originally you had to go to a location where they had these huge gaming things. Now it's like they're getting smaller and smaller, more and more powerful, and they can be anywhere at all times, right? Like your phone is probably more powerful than the laptops we had as a kid.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you worry about that with your daughter and, well, future kids as well? Do you worry about how addictive it could be, or how insidious it'll be in our culture?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the further we go, the more these game companies are coming up with sort of like the casino strategies to get you hooked and to get you paying money again and again and again. And it's getting a bit over the top, but it'll be interesting to see how much of a backlash there is.
Because that's the thing that's really started irritating me, because the pay-to-play games where it's no longer about skill and you don't all start from the same position anymore, right? So the game tends to be free. You can download it on your phone, at least with phone games. And I was whinging to you about this recently. And it's like, you get to a certain point where you're far enough in that you like the game and you want to keep playing. And then all of a sudden the difficulty goes up exponentially and you have to pay to unlock certain things or to get to the next level. And so they're obviously setting up these games where it's more about finding the 1 in 100 that's going to spend a heap of money on it than
the whales.
Than it is worrying about all of the dolphins, I guess, all the small guys who just want to play it and aren't going to spend that amount of money. Because I would probably spend, $50 on a good game, but the fact that it's free and I think, okay, and I get used to that and then play it, and they're trying to use frustration to get you to sort of start lashing out $1 here or $14 there, or just here, buy $1,000 of, online game currency that you can spend. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's going to get to a point where it's going to get regulated because people are going to be like, this is gambling for kids, or it's an addiction? You're using gaming mechanics and addictive processes to get children hooked and spend money, whether it's their money or not, their parents' money on this stuff, and it's getting out of control.
There is a bit of a case in Australia about this. I think it's like a Senate inquiry on whether or not loot boxes should be considered gambling.
Yeah.
So loot boxes are where you have like a digital box, and you pay for it, or you pay for a key for it,
or you unlock it, or you get it,
and it opens and you get a random item, usually cosmetic, doesn't really do anything in the game, but
or you'll get like at the moment with Angry Birds that I'm playing, you get points, or there's certain coins or crystals that you can then use to unlock other things. But it constantly asks me and prompts me, like, you've got this one box, but just pay $5 and you'll get this other one with even rarer items, and then it's sort of randomized what you get. Yeah,
it's a sort of like the same thing as a booster pack in a collectible card game.
Yeah,
that was the old school version of it, but it's worse partly because it's so available now, and you don't have to go down to the shops and purchase it physically. It's right there on your phone or your computer. And it's also that they're using those gambling strategies to make them more appealing. So the lights and sounds like you would get on a slot machine in the pokies, that's exactly what you get when you open a loot box in something like Overwatch. It
is pretty bizarre, isn't it? Because when I was growing up playing these games, I never made the connection between those two things. But it obviously, some entrepreneur or businessman quickly realized we can just apply the gambling mechanics, or gamification the same way that it's done in casinos into these games, and we'll make a lot more money.
Yeah, and they've got to constantly find the line for their particular market as to what people will put up with.
Yeah.
So like mobile gamers will put up with almost anything. You can do whatever pay-to-win strategies you want, and people will still play it, still pay for it.
Yeah.
Whereas the console and PC gamers are a bit more savvy, and they're probably more likely to give you a bit of backlash.
That's really bizarre, isn't it? Why do you think it is that there's a difference between being on your phone and playing these games? I just made it a verb. And
why not?
Playing it on consoles. Why do you think people playing phone games are more, accepting of these pay-as-you-go strategies?
It's partly because they're not traditional gamers in that they haven't, maybe they mucked around with them a little bit when they were younger, but if you're a console gamer or a PC gamer, you've been playing a lot of it for a long time, and you do remember when games weren't like this, and suddenly you go, hold on, this is no good. I'm not okay with this, and I'm going to, whether it's complain on a forum or, refuse to buy the game, there's a bit more backlash, whereas the mobile gamers are just happy to make the little lights go and click the buttons.
Yeah, far out. I wonder where it's going to go, and I think part of the problem too is that kids have more and more powerful phones, right? And especially phones that their parents have probably entered their card details and bank details into. So they do have the capacity to just, Mum, can I use your phone? And they get into a game and it's like, spend $50, $50. And you'll be like, oh my gosh, my bank account's emptied.
Oh, and there's some little features that, say like the Nintendo Switch has some really good parenting features where you can control the console from your phone and say, right, I want my kid to be playing this much per day. And when they go over the limit, it either gives them a warning when there's 5 minutes left, or it just turns off the console and they can't turn it back on. Yeah. So they're doing some good stuff as well, but I wonder how much I'm going to have to sort of police that with my kids too, because it's so important to obviously encourage them to go outside, but you don't want to at the same time control every minute of their life that they spend doing what activity. And say something like Fortnite, which is so ubiquitous with kids, you don't want to say to your kid, oh, you can't play it, and then they're not cool because they're not playing it. They don't know what the other kids are talking about.
I always remember that as a kid, right? You had those parents who were like, we don't have a TV, the kids aren't allowed to play games, and you'd be like, oh, I don't want to hang out with these kids.
Yeah, you don't want to make your kid like a secluded,
an outcast, right? An easy target. Yeah, so that's difficult. Well, I guess finishing up, what sort of games are the most popular games at the moment, style-wise, and which ones are you most into? Like, I know there's, you've got your shooters, your RPG, role-playing games, strategy games. What are you into?
It sort of depends on the console as to what's really big at the moment, but I guess the new hotness is not so new anymore, but over the past couple of years, the most recent popular genre is Battle Royale, where it's like you start with, maybe it's 100, maybe it's 50, maybe it's 10 players, and when you get killed, that's it. You're out of the round, and you have to wait for another 100 people to play again.
So it's always like a death match where you have just a last survivor, right? and they get certain points by being the last person, and there's a series of those different rounds.
Yeah, so if you're the final survivor, you get, say in PUBG, you get winner chicken dinner on the screen, and you might get a whole lot of points. And it's just very satisfying to know that you were bested 99 other people. I think that's what's addictive about it. And it's also,
do you get that often? Do you beat 99 other players?
No, not very often.
What do? You just have to hide for the entire round,
well,
right?
That's actually one of the most effective strategies.
Come out at the end.
Yeah, but there's a whole range of different games under that banner that are all very different. But yeah, that's probably the genre that I'm enjoying at the moment, just because it's fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Rory, thanks for joining me and chatting about gaming today.
No worries.